On the other side, what they also did a couple of other changes, which I think they could reevaluate, I think, is the seat height went up, ground clearance went up, etc., etc. It's 803 millimeters, right?
Okay.
I don't think that's stupidly tall. So they decided that we'll basically chamfer the edges of this new seat a little bit so that the standover angle remains roughly in the same place as the Speed 400.
Understood.
It turns out to be a good idea in theory and a terrible idea in practice. Because when I rode this motorcycle, I'm going to say we rode this motorcycle totally about 250 kilometers, out of which I think Vivek put 100 and I must have put another 150 on top, right? It felt like we were sitting on a really narrow seat.
So again,
So that
the
full
edges,
width, so the full width just didn't seem to work. And therefore, I was aching and paining a lot earlier than I would. And if I have to assume that part of the chassis is the same, I think the Speed 400 seat, which is not a great seat, would actually be a better seat than this.
Okay.
And I saw somebody on social media replacing the Scrambler 400 seat with the Speed 400. And I was like, that makes no sense. That's the best seat.
Okay.
The 400XS seat. And if the chassis is the same, in theory, you could move to that seat. It'll make it taller, obviously. But this seat doesn't work for me.
Okay.
This bike also has the same non-sintered, they call them high mu organic pads, which is a technical word that basically means they are the same pads as the Scrambler 400X. Those aren't great brake pads. And on this bike, brakes worked. I couldn't feel a thing. So did I slow down successfully for everything I needed to slow down for? Yes. Could I tell you anything about what was going on at the contact patch? Absolutely not. Thankfully, not a difficult fix. All you have to do is go back to the Triumph dealership and ask them to put the Speed 400's pad into this bike. That will take care of most of it. Now you have axially mounted calipers on the T4.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. You said that the front forks are different. You said that the steering geometry has changed. You said that it feels light and a little too light for this.
Yeah, and I think the Hunter is an excellent analogy for it.
My question is that you had said back then, I remember, that the Speed 400 suspension was excellent.
Yes,
right?
still is.
So it still works well?
Yes,
the promise?
it still works well. And I think the new setup actually allowed them to reevaluate what they'd done. So I think on the highway where the Speed 400 can lose that sense of composure a little bit and start bouncing around, this one will bounce later.
Okay.
So I think this is a better suspension setup overall. It's the flickability and all of that doesn't resonate with me in terms of how this bike feels. But I think overall, this is the better motorcycle than the Speed 400.
Okay.
The fact that it is less expensive, if you bought a Speed 400, you're going to hate me even more. And I'm sorry, but this is how it turned out.
Do you think that this price differential is okay?
Yeah, I think so. Look, it's
Relative-
23,000 rupees between the two bikes. The Speed 400 definitely has more equipment, right?
Yeah.
So if you're looking at it, kilo ke bhav se value for money, the Speed 400 is definitely more value for money than this bike.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. But I've said this from the beginning, I maintain today, the Speed 400 is not representative of the right kind of motorcycle coming together as a retro-ish kind of product. Some of those flaws carry into the Speed T4 in terms of the design. But fundamentally, if you ride the T4, it feels like the right product. And as I understand it, the T4 wasn't invented last night. The T4 and the Speed 400 were worked on together.
Oh,
and there was a
really?
fair bit of back and forth as to which do we start with. And Triumph always thought of the Speed 400 as the international global product and the T4 more as an India-specific product. And they decided to do global first and India next, which is how this motorcycle has suddenly arrived.
Hello. If you enjoyed this clip, which means you're into good conversations, and that's what we're all about. It's really hard packing in the essence of an idea into a 60-second clip. This 3-minute, 5-minute video would have given you a sense of that. And you can enjoy this entire conversation in its full glory on the MotorInc channel. So why don't you head out over there and subscribe to that? And you could subscribe to this channel as well if you enjoyed it.